The Knicks coaching picture is starting to crystallize, and it may bring up some interesting names. One that actually might lead to another star down the line. Hit that rock. Before we get started, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the dark notification bell to get each and every notification for each and every video I put out to this boy, Gmo Legion Knicks. Let's get it. So according to recent reports, one by Mark Stein as well as one by Ian Begley, the New York Knicks are interested in acquiring former player Hall of Famer Jason Kidd as well as former coach of the Mavericks. And then on the flip side, the Knicks are also interested in acquiring or trying to bring on Chris Finch, who is the current coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both coaches currently signed through for several years with Jason Kidd. He signed through 2026, 2027. It's a guy who's had a 179 to 149 record with the Dallas Mavericks this past season. Obviously losing in what was the play-in, I believe. And just given the fact that Kyrie got hurt, AD was out for it was done basically. They just could not really muster up a run through the postseason, but it's a guy who's been in the Western Conference Finals, was there last year with Luka Doncic as well as Kyrie Irving, a guy who's also had some time playing alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, who seems to swear by his coaching. Then you have Chris Finch on the other side. In 5 seasons, a record of 125 and 83 with the Minnesota Timberwolves, twice reaching the Western Conference Finals this past season, losing out to the OKC Thunder last year, losing out to the Dallas Mavericks. And so it's interesting that Knicks are so-called going after coaches who already signed through. Now, again, this could all be posturing. There is some limitations on a team speaking to even assistant coaches that are signed with another team during the regular season. And so to me, this could all just be a ploy to dress up and make it seem like the Knicks weren't colluding or talking to Johnny Bryant or having a relationship with Johnny Bryant. Also, some conspiracy theories that the Knicks sent out Johnny Bryant to Cleveland or just sent them out knowing that they're going to bring him back in, knowing that Tom Thibodeau was on borrowed time anyway. He was going to be the eventual replacement. That could all be true, but Jason Kidd is definitely an interesting candidate just because of he seems like the antithesis of Tom Thibodeau in many regards, a guy that many guys swear by, that he listens to players, that he actually incorporates what you believe may be right for your game. Instances where he's deployed having DFS being a corner. Now, granted, people say DFS is a 3-and-D player. Carlisle would say that, but then DFS actually told Jason Kidd, hey, I actually like to get the ball in the corner in these situations and sets, and Jason Kidd started to pull that more for him. Jason Kidd's another guy has also been rumored to play a lot of mind games with players, which is very interesting given the fact that, again, he's one of the greatest point guards of all time, one of the smartest players of all time. So you probably see it that he knows how to play certain games to get you riled up to elevate your game. He's a guy who's big on personal relationships with players. It seems from all accounts he's a guy that's also focused on development as well too. Now, granted, he's had stars, Luka Doncic for several years, and he's obviously run the offense through him. But he also had guys like Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson saw some of his better numbers or best numbers coming off the bench under Jason Kidd until he left to go to New York. And so Jason Kidd would definitely be an interesting figure. Now, on the defensive end, the Dallas Mavericks defense has not been good. Last year they had guys like Derek Lively. Obviously, P.J. Washington kind of showed out as well too, as a forward on that team. But it's a team that is definitely ranked near the bottom, near the bottom half or slightly above it in terms of defensive ranking. The Mavericks have just not been a great defensive team. Now, this year's hard to tell just because so many guys got hurt. But Jason Kidd is definitely an interesting guy to have on. He's had experience with Jalen Brunson. Now, the thing with Jason Kidd is, if you bring a Jason Kidd here, does that mean that you're going to bring on Giannis Antetokounmpo? And also the Mavericks, given that their situations, they want to get out of the Dallas situation. To me, I think they want to get that casino. If they don't get in Dallas, they're going to move over to Vegas. But if that's the case with their GM, who's been much maligned this past offseason or this past season, would he be down to do that? Now, again, if Jason Kidd is there, and you saw him at the press conferences talk about the Luka Doncic trade, I don't think he necessarily wanted to pull that trade off. He likes a star player. He wanted to go into the playoffs. He wanted to try to reach the finals and win a chip. So would they be like, hey, we're rebuilding anyway. What's the point of having you here if you're more of a so-called winning coach, if that makes any sense of the word? But it would be interesting to see if the Knicks actually go after him. They have to pay out. If that's the case, too, please try to trade for Max Christie. Brock Alla, I know you know how the books work. Try to trade for Max Christie as well, too. That's my son from Michigan State. But, again, Jason Kidd being the antithesis of Tom Thibodeau would allow these players a little bit more control, which is not necessarily a good thing, right? They run, read, and react, which again is based on their intellect, how they process the game. A lot of that is built in the system. So is it that they need more so-called freedom to play? I don't necessarily think so. Do they need more structure? Yes. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest factor to success for this team going in the future is, at least on the offensive end, granted, the Knicks again were ninth in scoring, fifth in the offensive rating, is getting guys the ball in their best spots, getting the most efficiency, getting the most usage, getting the most value out of guys in their strengths, right? Now, people will sit up here and say, oh, Jalen Brunson and Cat, and I agree with that. But again, part of the season, they were number one in pick and roll scoring, points per possession in pick and roll, right? So that's something to look forward to. Does Jason Kidd enforce that? Does Jason Kidd feature Mikal Bridges a little bit more using the pick and roll when Brunson sits, using Mikal Bridges as your on-ball kind of dynamo playmaker, exploiting Cat more from the outside, even though I have my reservations about that being the thing that held back the Knicks. No, per se. Does he try to build Cat into this multifaceted play, which I think Tibbs was trying to do? I ain't going to talk about Tibbs. It is what it is. And have him attack the basket, pick up his post-up spots, try to attack the mismatches when he needs to, right? That's the biggest issue, I guess, with Jason Kidd. And then that also bears to, you have to ask, bring it over Giannis. And then what you trade for Giannis. Now, people have said their packages with Cat. You could trade, to be honest, but I think the package would probably most likely revolve around OG, another player, McBride, and some picks. As painful as it is, right? So you have a Jason Kidd coach here, win now situation. He's a guy that we've seen over the years can coach up. He can coach up players, star players, to kind of get over the hump. Look what he did with Luka Doncic and Kyrie, who one of the more underrated two-man games you saw last year in the playoffs versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Jason Kidd just knows how to bring out the best in star players. And then young players as well, too. Look what he did with Max Christie. Granted, Max Christie was developing on the Lakers, so let's not take away what the Lakers were developing with Max Christie. But Max Christie on the Mavericks looked good. Quincy Grimes, all players. When a bunch of those guys were hurt, he looked good under Jason Kidd as well, too. So does that bode well for a guy like Bakome Daddier, as Ariel Huck-Purdy, Tyler Kolek, and even Kevin McCullough? Can you develop these guys to be viable weapons off the bench, given the fact that the Knicks are, again, above the first apron, not going to have a lot of space, space to play with in terms of bringing over free agents to this team, right? You have the mid-level exception, things of that nature, but you don't have the biannual. There's certain exceptions you just don't have the space, right? So Knicks are going to be handicapped. So bringing over a guy like Jason Kidd, Brock Allah has to come and cook up the books. And getting over a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, what would you guys give up from Giannis? Do you think Giannis will get us over the hump? Are you a fan of bringing over Giannis to get us into that championship and stop freaking Halliburton from hitting clutch shot after clutch shot like he did against the OKC Thunder in Game 1? Now, another coach, like I mentioned, Chris Finch, which is a weird one. I don't get it. You get to the Western Conference Finals, changing rosters, and they want to, not say the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? This is all the Knicks, according to Ian Bagley, they have an interest in him. I don't see him coming off. And to the Knicks, it'll be an odd fit. Again, coming back to Karl-Anthony Towns, you still have a big and Mitchell Robinson. Granted, not as much money, not as much of a hold, let me say, with Mitchell Robinson versus Rudy Gobert in terms of value, how they look at Gobert, right? Gobert's contract just a lot more significant versus Mitchell Robinson's, which is expiring, right? 15 million expiring, 14 million, whatever it is. But he runs the same situation with Cat and Mitch and trying to make that work. Now, last year with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the question was, how do you get the best out of Cat? And no offense to Chris Finch, I don't think he was able to get the most out of him because he values defense. He's a defense guy. Doesn't matter. This team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, had a top defense in the league for the past 2 seasons, despite having Cat and despite having Randall on their teams. He was still able to make it work. Obviously, Gobert, Anthony Edwards, but guys like Jaden McDaniels, my son, Nickeil Alexander-Walker with some great contributions this season. So he's going to build his philosophy around defense, which I think is actually the Achilles heel as to why the Knicks lost to the Pacers. But people are going to say it's the offense. People are enamored by Cat and Brunson having to have the two-man game, be the best throughout people are enamored with the offense around those guys. And I'm not saying it couldn't improve it. It definitely could have because it fell off in the second half and into the playoffs. But the defense was the issue. Now, having these guys having to play up defensively is the same intensity as Tom Thibodeau. Would Chris Finch mix and match his defenses to allow these guys a little bit more time to breathe? I don't think he's going to be as onerous on their legs in the minutes as Tom Thibodeau was with these guys and what they perceive it to be But the focus is going to be on defense. Can he elevate Karl Towns' defense to even be adequate, to even be average, to be able to pick his spots, right? We playing against these teams that can shoot off of screens, the Celtics, the Pacers, and teams is going to take that formula and try to replicate against us. Can he get Cat to be a viable option to prevent the other teams abusing the Brunson pick and roll, the Brunson Cat pick and roll against us, right? In terms of them playing defense on that. But again, Chris Finch is a weird one. I don't see it happening per se. Again, I wouldn't say older coach. He's another guy who definitely values his players having relationships with players. So he's a guy, man. I think he's going to try to improvise and emphasize players' abilities. Look what happened with Jay McDaniels in the playoffs. Guys are going to kill Alexander Walker, who's now a free agent. He's big on accountability as well, too. So, again, you get these guys who are more player-friendly. Can he get those guys to buy in to his defense? They talk about him being forward-thinking with his adaptability as well, too. Even though, they're saying these things, post-All-Star break. But, again, Chris Finch is another interesting candidate. I just think the Knicks are playing with a little bit of fire right now. Got to be careful to not put out that if they don't have Johnny Bryant under the wings, right? You don't want to put out to the rest of the league that you actually don't really have a plan. You're trying to poach coaches from other teams. Again, this is if Johnny Bryant, this is not all a smokescreen for Johnny Bryant, right? Which I think they already have in the bag with Johnny Bryant, but they're just trying to put out there that, they're interested in these coaches that just assume they didn't. You don't want to play that game where now you're trying to poach somebody from another team. You might have to overpay, give up compensation you don't want to give up to so-called trade for a coach, right? We don't want to be in that business. So hopefully the Knicks have gotten everything down packed in terms of Johnny Bryant's going to be the coach or whoever it is, if it's Chris Quinn, whoever it is. But again, interesting candidates. They do offer some differences compared to Tom Thibodeau in terms of just player management, the approach to the game, being a little bit so-called forward-thinking, even though Chris Finch's offense is basically Anthony Edwards, dribble, drive, kick out. Everybody runs the same crap for the most part, man. Outside of like Mike Malone, everybody's running the same damn offenses for the most part. But it is what it is. But guys, let me know your thoughts, your comments. Again, interesting news coming out of Knicks camp. Again, I think it's all a smoke screen to make it seem as if we haven't been colluding to get Johnny Bryant or doing some illegal stuff. We don't want to get in any more trouble, give up any viable second-round picks. So we'll see. But it's your boy Gmo Leisure Knicks. I appreciate you guys, man. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Peace, God bless. I'll catch you guys on the next one.